Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Nārada Gosvāmī Maharaj Śrīla Gurudev ki jai. Nitya Parashatarashata Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Vaman Gosvāmī Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Pravishtam Vishnu Parashatarashata Śrīmad Śrīla Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Nitya Pravishtam Vishnu Parashatarashata Śrīmad Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Maha-Bhagavat Śrīla Goraksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Vaishnava Sarva Śrīla Sachidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupa Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shara Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namachay Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishya Bharata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahavadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Bhakta Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. Whoa, sorry guys, my mind is going somewhere else. Let me start over. Guruve Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tar Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravrajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayana Virahaka Tara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Bhinedustang Sarva Bhutaridayam Munimanatosmi. Narayanam Namaskrityam Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Shrinvatang Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Hridantastoya Bhadrani Vidhunuti Suritsatam. Nashta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatutama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Tavai Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam. Bhakta Vihina Aparada Lakshay Kshiptashtakama Ditaranga Madhe Kripa Maitam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charana Ravindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Dandavat Pranams, Prajumna Prabhu and Mantramurti Mataji and Rup Manjari Didi Gargaraj, Raseshwari, Mataji. Dandavat pranams, everybody. Pradyumna, I don't know clearly the answer to your question. Oops, wait, where is it? Okay. So today we are finishing Canto 4 of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Finally, after how many months has it been? I think it's probably been like 4 or 5 months, huh? That we've been reading the 4th canto. Is the 4th canto the longest canto before the 10th canto? Oh, 11th canto is also really long. Okay, let me open up 31. Let me close this all. Sorry guys. There. Yeah, and then since we don't have that much to read till we're finished, so then I thought we can start reading from Bhagavat Pravaha. Just recap everything that we read in this 4th canto. I'll read a little bit of it. Let me just check though what we read yesterday. We went 10 to 19. Okay, let's just go from the beginning. The Lord told the Pracetās in 30:18 that they would become disgusted with their kingdom and attain him. So in the previous chapter, verse 18, that they'd become disgusted with their kingdom and attain him. That prediction comes true in this chapter. The Pracetās detach from their kingdom, leave for the forest, and by bhakti, described by Nārada Muni, attain Krishna. After living at home for thousands of years, the Pracetās finally remembered the Lord's blessings and left home, leaving Marisha in the care of Daksha. The Pracetās went to the seashore where the sage Jajali was residing. After perfecting their spiritual knowledge of equanimity towards all living entities, the Pracetās became perfect in Krishna consciousness. While the Pracetās were practicing pranayam, etc., Nārada, who was worshipped both by the demons and the demigods, came to see them. The Pracetās, they offered Nārada a seat and inquired from him. It is good fortune to see you. Your movements are like that of the sun, which drives away all fear, removes the darkness of night. Because of our attachment to family affairs, we almost forgot the instructions of Shiva and Vishnu. Kindly enlighten us in transcendental knowledge, which acts as a torchlight to cross the dark nescience of material existence. The supreme devotee Nārada, who is always absorbed in thoughts of the Lord, began to reply as follows. Devotional service is the goal of all spiritual practices. The birth, activities, lifespan, mind, and words of humans are perfected by devotional service unto Him, unto the Lord. Without bhakti, the following are useless. The 3 births of a civilized human being: Shokra, birth by semen; Savitra, sacred thread, birth by sacred thread, which means initiation by Guru; Yagika, initiation into the performance of Vedic sacrifices. Without bhakti, all of these are useless. The activities instructed in the Vedas, the long life of a human, Vedic education and austerity, power of speech and mental speculation, elevated intelligence and expertise, bodily strength and sensual power. Without God realization, the following are useless: mystic yoga and analytical study of matter, the renounced order and Vedic study, other auspicious acts that do not help in realizing the all these things and other auspicious acts that do not help in realizing Lord Hari are all useless. What is the logic in saying that all processes are useless without bhakti? Someone might ask. The Lord is the source of self-realization. Of all the auspicious activities, the Jivatma is the factual goal or destination. But the Supreme Lord Hari is the Atma of all Jivatmas, and when He is pleased, He gives Himself. Worship of the Supreme Lord is complete. And this is a famous shloka, which we'll add to our shloka group, maybe. Watering the root of a tree energizes the trunk, branches, twigs, and everything else. Note, watering the root is better, but couldn't one water the branches and leaves also? Another analogy is given to refute this argument. Supplying food to the stomach enlivens the senses and limbs. Note, food has to be given to the stomach. It cannot be assimilated by senses like the ears and eyes. Yeah, don't stick food in your ear. Therefore, the logic of worshipping both the Lord and the demigods is faulty. Of worshipping the demigods. If you're worshipping the Lord, no need to worship the demigods. Similarly, worshipping the Lord by devotional service satisfies the demigods. The Supreme Lord is worthy of all worship. Everything is generated and returns to the Lord. Everything is generated from and returns to the Lord. Like, water is generated from the sun in monsoon and evaporated by the sun in the summer. Living entities, the bodies, are generated from the earth and return to the earth as dust. Link. In verse 15 explains that the Supreme Lord is the original cause of everything. Now it is explained how the Supreme Lord is all-pervasive. The universe is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord. Sunshine analogy. The sunshine emanates from the sun and is non-different from the sun. Similarly, the universe emanates from the Lord and is not different from Him. Therefore, the Lord is all-pervading in the universe, like the sun. In the senses analogy. The senses appear manifest as part of the body in the waking state and unmanifest during sleep, but both are actually always there. Wait, why did I say both? Sorry. The senses appear manifest in the waking state and unmanifest during sleep, but are actually always there. The senses are always there. Similarly, the universe sometimes appears manifest and sometimes unmanifest, but the Lord's energy always exists. Link. How can the Lord, who is beyond the modes of material nature of the universe, be the cause of the universe made of such modes? Okay, so how can the Lord, who is beyond the modes, be the cause of the universe which is made of those modes? Clouds, darkness, and light appear and disappear in the sky in succession. Similarly, the energies of Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva appear and disappear in the Lord. Note, though the sun is beyond the clouds, it is their material cause. Yes. And remains unchanged. Okay, yeah, the sun is the cause of the clouds. Yes. And the sun remains unchanged. Similarly, the Lord, though beyond the gunas, the modes of material nature, is the cause of the universe and unchanging. Satisfy the all-powerful Lord by devotional service. The Lord's qualities. Engage in His service. The Lord is one, the supersoul of all entities. He is the remote and immediate cause, the supreme person and transcendental controller. He is aloof from material interactions by His spiritual energy. Therefore, engage in His devotional service, thinking yourself qualitatively one with Him. Favorable qualities for worshipping the Lord. By showing mercy to all beings, being satisfied somehow or other, and controlling the senses from sense enjoyment, one can very quickly satisfy the Lord. Intimacy between the Lord and His devotees. Explains the devotees, then the Supreme Lord. The Lord's reciprocation. It doesn't accept the word of non-devotees. And then, yeah, we're going to read all this now. 20, right? Yes, 20 to 31. Dandavat pranams Madhavi Didi and Rasangi Mataji, Dandavat pranams. Yeah, it is a bit of a weird flowchart. Okay. Being completely cleansed of all material desires. Oops, I forgot to read this Sanskrit. Apahata sakalayashana malatman. No. How does this go? Apahata sakalayashana malatmani aviratam edhita bhavano pahuta nijajana vashagatvam atmanoyam nasharati chidravad akshara satam hi. Interesting meter. Being completely cleansed of all material desires, the devotees are freed from all mental contamination. Thus they can always think of the Lord constantly and address Him very feelingly. Feelingly, that's an interesting word. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, knowing Himself to be controlled by His devotees, does not leave them for a second, just as the sky overhead never becomes invisible. Wait, what? I didn't understand that. The Supreme Personality of God, knowing Himself to be controlled by His devotees, does not leave them for a second, just as the sky overhead never becomes invisible. Okay. I don't understand this part. The sky overhead never becomes invisible. It's probably something really basic and I'm just not able to get it right now. Okay, like the blue sky. Okay, we'll find out in the purport. Because I was thinking the sky is invisible. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is clear from the previous verse that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janardhan, is very quickly satisfied by the activities of his devotees. The pure devotee is always absorbed in thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated, Shrinvata Swakata Krishnam. By always thinking of Krishna, the pure devotee's heart is freed from all kinds of desires. In the material world, the heart of the living entity is filled with material desires. When the living entity is cleansed, he does not think of anything material. As the mind is completely cleansed, one attains the perfectional stage of mystic yoga, for then the yogi always sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart. Dhyana vastita tar gatena manasa pashyanti yam yogina. As soon as the Lord is seated within the heart of the devotee cannot be contaminated by the material modes of nature. As long as one is under the control of the material modes, he desires so many things and makes so many plans for material sense enjoyment. But as soon as the Lord is perceived in the heart, all material desires vanish. When the mind is completely free from material desire, the devotee can think of the Lord constantly. In this way, he becomes completely dependent upon the lotus feet of the Lord. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays, Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavam buddho kripaya tava para pankaja stita dhole sadrisham vichintaya. My dear Lord, I am your eternal servant, but somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of this material world. Kindly pick me up and fix me as a speck of dust at your lotus feet. That's Shikshashtakam verse 5. Similarly, Narottam Das Thakur prays, Ha ha Prabhu Nanda Sutta Vrishabhanu Sutta Juta Karuna Karo Ye Bar Narottam Dasa Koi Nateli Horanga Pai Toma Bine Ke Ache Amar. My dear Lord, you are now present with the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, Srimati Radharani. Now both of you, please be merciful upon me. Don't kick me away, because I have no shelter other than you. In this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes dependent on his devotee. The Lord is invincible, yet he is conquered by his pure devotee. He enjoys being dependent on his devotee, just as Krishna enjoyed being dependent on the mercy of Mother Yashoda. Thinking himself dependent on the devotee gives the Supreme Lord great enjoyment. Sometimes a king may engage a joker, and in the process of joking, the king is sometimes insulted. The king, however, enjoys these activities. Everyone worships the Supreme Lord with great reverence. Therefore, the Lord sometimes wants to enjoy the chastisement of his devotees. In this way, the relationship eternally existing between the Lord and his devotees is fixed, just like the sky overhead. Na bhajati kumanishinim Na bhajati kumanishinam saijam Hareradhanatma dhana priyo rasagya Shruta dhana kula karmanam madirye Vidadhati papam akinchaneshu satsu. I have no idea what meter this is. I have to find this one out. Nabhajati kumanisha. Anyways, whatever. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, I'm actually just curious. I'm going to save this shloka for later. Check another time. There. I'll check it out later. The Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes very dear to those devotees who have no material possessions, but are fully happy in possessing the devotional service of the Lord. Indeed, the Lord relishes the devotional activities of such devotees. Those who are puffed up with material education, wealth, aristocracy, and fruit of activity are very proud of possessing material things, and they often deride the devotees. Even if such people offer the Lord worship, the Lord never accepts them. Actually, I think I went over this in Srila Vāman Goswami Maharaj's letters yesterday. I did. Yeah, just yesterday I was working on something by Srila Vāman Goswami, and he quoted this part right here. Shruta dhana kula karmanam. That's so neat. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is dependent on his pure devotees. He does not even accept the offerings of those who are not devotees. A pure devotee is one who feels he does not possess anything material. A devotee is always happy in possessing the devotional service of the Lord. Devotees may sometimes appear materially poor, but because they are spiritually advanced and enriched, they are most dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such devotees are free from attachment to family, society, friendship, children, and so on. They abandon affection for all these material possessions and are always happy in possessing the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. The Supreme Personality of Godhead understands the position of his devotee. If a person derides a pure devotee, he is never recognized by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, the Supreme Lord never excuses one who offends a pure devotee. There are many examples of this in history. A great mystic yogi, Durvasa Muni, offended the great devotee Ambarish Maharaj. The great sage Durvasa was to be chastised by the Sudarshan Chakra of the Lord. Even though the great mystic directly approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was never excused. Those on the path of liberation should be very careful not to offend a pure devotee. Shriyam anucharitim tarartinascha dvipadapatim vibudangscha yat sapurna nabhajati nija brita vargatantra katamamun ud visrajet puman kritagya. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is self-sufficient, he becomes dependent on his devotees. He does not care for the goddess of fortune, nor the kings and demigods who are after the favors of the goddess, nor for the kings and demigods who are after the favors of the goddess of fortune. Where is that person who is actually grateful and will not worship the personality of Godhead? Where is that person who is actually grateful and will not worship the personality of Godhead? Such a person does not exist. Purport. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is worshipped by all materialistic men, including big kings and demigods in heaven. Lakshmi, however, is always after the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though he does not require her service. Brahma Samhita says that the Lord is worshipped by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune, but the Supreme Lord does not require service from any of them, because if he so desires, he can produce millions of goddesses of fortune through his spiritual energy, the pleasure potency, Hladini Shakti. This very personality of personality of Godhead, out of his causeless mercy, becomes dependent on the devotees. How fortunate then is a devotee who is thus favored by the personality of Godhead? What ungrateful devotee will not worship the Lord and enter into his devotional service? Actually, a devotee cannot forget his obligation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead even for a single moment. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that both the Supreme Lord and his devotee are rasagya, full of transcendental humor. The mutual attachment between the Supreme Lord and his devotee is never to be considered material. It always exists as a transcendental fact. There are 8 types of transcendental ecstasy, known as bhav, anubhav, sthāyi bhav, and so on. And these are discussed in the Nectar of Devotion. Those who are unaware of the position of the living entity and the Supreme Person Krishna think that the mutual attachment between the Lord and his devotees is a creation of the material energy. Factually, such attachment is natural, both for the Supreme Lord and for the devotee, and it cannot be accepted as material. Maitreya uvacha iti pracetaso rajan anyascha bhagavat kata shravayitva brahmalokam yayo swayam bhuvo muni. The great sage Maitreya continued, "My dear King Vidura, Sri Nārada Muni, the son of Lord Brahma, thus described all these relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the Pracetās. Afterward, he returned to Brahmaloka." Purport. One has to hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead from a pure devotee. The Pracetās got this opportunity from the great sage Nārada, who told them of the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees. Te pitan mukhaniryatam yasholoka malapaham harer nishamya tatpadam dhyayantas targatim yayu. Hearing from Narada's mouth the glories of the Lord, which vanquish all the ill fortune of the world, the Pracetās also became attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Meditating on his lotus feet, they advanced to the ultimate destination. Purport. Here it is seen that by hearing the glories of the Lord from a realized devotee, the Pracetās easily attain strong attachment for the Supreme Personality of God. Then, meditating on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord at the end of their lives, they advance to the ultimate goal, Vishnu Loka. It is sure and certain that anyone who always hears the glories of the Lord and thinks of his lotus feet will reach that supreme destination. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 1865, "Manmana bhavamar bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mami vaishyasi satyang te pratijane priyosime." Always think of me and become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this, because you are my very dear friend. Etate bihitam kshatar yanmang tvam pariprishtavan pracetasam naradasya sangvadam harikirtanam. Sorry. My dear Vidura, I have told you everything you wanted to know about the conversation between Nārada and the Pracetās, the conversation describing the glories of the Lord. I have related this as far as possible. Purport. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam describes the glories of the Lord and his devotees. Because the whole subject matter is the glorification of the Lord, naturally the glorification of his devotees automatically follows. So now we're coming out of the conversation of, right, we're in a conversation within a conversation within a conversation. So now, Shuka uvacha, ya esha utano pado, manavasyanuvarnita, vanksha priyavrata syapi, nibodha nripasattama. Śukadeva Gosvāmī continued, O best of kings, King Parikshit, I have now finished telling about the descendants of the first son of Swayambhuva, Uttanapad. I shall now try to relate the activities of the descendants of Priyavrata, the second son of Swayambhuva. Please hear them attentively. Purport. Dhruva Maharaj was the son of King Uttanapad, and as far as the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj or King Uttanapad are concerned, their activities have been described up to the point of the Pracetās. Now Sri Śukadeva Gosvāmī desires to describe the descendants of Maharaj Priyavrata, the second son of Swayambhuva. Yo Nārada atma vedyam adigamya punarmahim bhuktva vibhajya putrebhya aishwaram samagat padam. Although Maharaj Priyavrata received instructions from the great sage Nārada, he still engaged in ruling the earth. After fully enjoying material possessions, he divided his property among his sons. He then attained a position by which he could return home back to Godhead. Imam tu kosharavinno pavarnitam kshata nishamya jitavada satkatam pravreda bhavo shukala kulo munir tadhara murdhna charanam hridahare. My dear king, in this way, after hearing the transcendental messages of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees from the great sage Maitreya, Vidura was overwhelmed with ecstasy. With tears in his eyes, he immediately fell down at the lotus feet of his guru, his spiritual master. He then fixed the Supreme Personality of Godhead within the core of his heart. Purport. This is a sign of associating with great devotees. A devotee takes instruction from a liberated soul and is thus overwhelmed by ecstasy from transcendental pleasure. As stated by Prahlad Maharaj, Naisham matistavar urukramangrim sprishat anartha pagamo yadartha mahiya sampada rajobhishekam nishkinchananam navrinitayavat. One cannot become a perfect devotee of the Lord without having touched the lotus feet of a great devotee. One who has nothing to do with this material world is called Nishkinchana. The process of self-realization on the path home back to Godhead means surrendering to the bona fide spiritual master and taking the dust of his lotus feet on one's head. Thus one advances on the path of transcendental realization. Vidura had this relationship with Maitreya, and he attains the results. Vidura uvacha Soyamadya mahayogim bhavata karunatmana tarshitas tamasa para yatra kinchana go hari. Sri Vidura said, O great mystic, O greatest of all devotees, by your causeless mercy, I have been shown the path of liberation from this world of darkness. By following this path, a person liberated from the material world can return home back to Godhead. Purport. This material world is called tama, dark, and the spiritual world is called light. The Vedas enjoin that everyone should try to get out of the darkness and go to the kingdom of light. Information of that kingdom of light can be attained through the mercy of a self-realized soul. One also has to get rid of all material desires. As soon as one frees himself from material desires and associates with a liberated person, the path back home, back to Godhead is clear. Shri Shuka uvacha ittanamya tamat mantra viduro gajasa havyam Viduro gajasa vayam swanam didrikshu prayayo gyatinam nirvritashaya. Śukadeva Gosvāmī continued, Vidura thus offered obeisances unto the great sage Maitreya and, taking his permission, started for the city of Hastinapura to see his own kinsmen, although he had no material desires. Purport. When a saintly person wants to see his kinsmen, he has no material desire to see them. He simply wants to give them some instructions so that they can benefit. Vidura belonged to the royal family of the Kauravas, and although he knew that all the family members were destroyed at the battle of Kurukshetra, he nonetheless wanted to see his elder brother Dhritarashtra to see if he could deliver Dhritarashtra from the clutches of Maya. When a saintly person like Vidura sees his relatives, he desires only to deliver them from the clutches of Maya. Vidura thus offered his respectful obeisances to his spiritual master and departed for the city of Hastinapura, the kingdom of the Kauravas. This is the last verse of the 4th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, right? I think it's 31 verses. Yeah. Oops. Etadya shrunuyad rajan ragyam haryarpitatmanam ayurdhanam yasha swasti gatim aishvaryamapnuyat. O king, those who hear these topics about kings who are completely surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead obtain without difficulty a long life, wealth, good reputation, good fortune, and ultimately the opportunity to return home back to Godhead. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 4th canto, 31st chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled Nārada Instructs the Pracetās. End of the 4th canto. Hari Bo! Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai! Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, what do you call it? Chaturtha Skanda ki jai. Wow, we made it! We made it to the end of the 4th canto. Now we're officially halfway through reading Srila Prabhupada's purports. And in just a few days from now will be 1 year of our daily reading Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Well, no. I started on July 6th. So, yeah, I don't know how far away is that. It's like, is that 10 days? Alright, so, let me see the comments really quick. Great. Rup Manjari is doing the Ulu Dhvani. I can't do it. My tongue doesn't move fast enough. Anyways, that's for Okay, so now I wanted to go over the fourth canto. I thought it'd be nice just to do, since we took so long, it took months to get through the fourth canto, 4 or 5 months, I'm guessing. I thought it'd be nice to just do a recap of the whole fourth canto from this book, Bhagavat Subodhini. Where is it? Oh, there's Kindle books. Of course, it's not for me. Oh yeah, Uludwani. We're gonna look at Bhagavat Pravaha. It's written by the same author, but it's a lot more. Yeah, the Subodhini is a lot more in depth. This is just like it's like cliff notes. How come it's not opening there? Okay. We'll read a little bit today, and then tomorrow we'll read more. Okay, so let's open this up. Oh, God. Oh, shoot. Sorry, guys. 1 second. There. Fourth canto. I'm not used to using the online Kindle book. Okay. Canto 4. The fourth canto uncovers extraordinary examples of bhakti through the characters of Lord Shiva, Suniti, Dhruva, Nārada, Anga, Prithu, and the Pracetās. It presents a stark contrast of unfavorable attitudes in bhakti through the mistakes of characters like Daksha, Suruchi, Vena, Indra, and Prachina-bharhi. The positive transformation undergone by many of these wrongdoers, mainly due to the intervention of devotees, further add to the glory of bhakti. The prayers of pure devotees like Dhruva, Prithu, and the Pracetās disclose the foremost aspiration of a devotee, to hear Krishna Katha and the association of devotees. By rejecting heavenly enjoyment and impersonal liberation through reason of higher revelation, such prayers once again establish the superiority of bhakti yoga over the processes of karma and jnana. The science of transmigration of the soul is logically visualized for the reader through the highly insightful allegorical story of King Puranjan. This canto also exalts Rajarshis, saintly heads of state, like Uttanapad, Dhruva, Anga, Prithu, Prachina-bharhi, and the Pracetās, who responsibly ruled their citizens and timely retired with detachment and devotion. This canto also extols virtuous ladies like Anusurya, Sati, Suniti, Archi, and Vaidarbhi, who were devoted to their husbands with love and faith. Their refined characters are perfect examples for disciples in serving their gurus. Alright, so now we begin. And we're just going to read for 15 minutes. Devahuti's 9 daughters were married to 9 powerful sages. Of these couples, Anusurya and Atri begot Dattatreya. Anusurya and Atri... Wait, let me reread that. Devahuti's 9 daughters were married to 9 powerful sages. Of these couples, Anusurya and Atri begot Dattatreya, Soma, and Durvasa, the partial expansions of Lord Vishnu. Brahma and Shiva... the partial expansions of Lord Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva, respectively. Swayambhuva Manu's other 2 daughters, Akuti and Prasuti, were married to the Prajapatis Ruchi and Daksha, respectively. Akuti and Ruchi begot a son named Yagya and a daughter named Dakshina. Prasuti and Daksha begot 16 daughters. 13 of them were married to Dharma, 1 to Agni, and 1 to the Pitris. The 16th daughter, Sati, was married to Lord Shiva, but she had no children, as she gave up her body prematurely due to a conflict between her husband Shiva and her father Daksha. In this way, Maitreya described the lineages of Manu's daughters. Inquisitive Vidura picked upon Sati's premature death and inquired about the reason for the conflict between Shiva and Daksha. Fall down by false pride. Once, all the sages, demigods, fire gods, and other leaders of the universe assembled to perform a 1,000-year sacrifice. Daksha Prajapati, the expert and chief progenitor, entered the great assembly. Seeing him, everyone except Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva stood up in respect. Daksha offered obeisances to his father Brahma, but noticing Shiva sitting without rising to show him respect, Daksha was enraged. On the pretext of speaking about good manners and culture of respect, Daksha's envy took shape of sharp words as he criticized Lord Shiva. This Shiva is a shameless and proud fellow. He married my daughter and thus accepted himself as my subordinate. Yet he doesn't offer me due respects. He is impure, unclean, homeless, mad, and the master of ghosts and ignorance. Due to his deep-rooted envy, Daksha cursed Shiva. May this Shiva not have a share in the sacrificial oblations. Daksha then angrily left the assembly in spite of the opposition of the assembly leaders. Nandishwar, the devout servant of Lord Shiva, became infuriated at Daksha. He counter-cursed Daksha and all his Brahman supporters who tolerated this impudent behavior. Angrily, Nandishwar uttered, "Let Daksha have the head of a goat shortly, and his followers continue in samskar, remaining attached to material activities." Now sage Bhrigu became enraged at Nandishwar and cursed in retaliation. "Let the followers of Lord Shiva become atheists, be diverted from scriptural injunctions, become addicted to wine, flesh, and take shelter of unauthorized and heretical views." Seeing the atmosphere surcharged with intense vibrations of anger, Lord Shiva became morose and left the place. He found this a harmless way to stop the cursing and counter-cursing. Despite the absence of Shiva and Daksha, the other progenitors performed the 1,000-year sacrifice to please Lord Hari. Tensions between Daksha and Shiva continued for a long time. Once Daksha performed another great sacrifice. Unwilling to let the bygones be bygones, Daksha didn't invite Lord Shiva and his followers. When Sati saw hundreds of heavenly denizens going for that sacrifice, well dressed and ornamented, she became desirous to go to her father's sacrifice, although uninvited. Sati approached Shiva and implored, "Many people are going for your father-in-law's sacrifice. I also wish to see my mother, sisters, aunts, and relatives. Please be kind and allow me to go." Protective of his dear wife, Lord Shiva discouraged her to go to Daksha's sacrifice, foreseeing harm to her at the event. Wise Shiva reasoned with emotional Sati. One can go to a relative's house even uninvited, but only if the host is not a fault finder. The 6 good qualities, knowledge, austerity, wealth, beauty, youth, and heritage, become faults in a proud person, who cannot see good in others. You may be the favorite daughter of Daksha, but he will not respect you because of your connection with me. If you neglect my words and go there, the future will not be good for you. Humiliation by a relative is equal to death. Sati was afraid and upset. Oscillating between extreme emotions of anger and lamentation, with her intelligence bewildered, she decided to go alone, leaving Shiva behind. Knowing the mind of Shiva, his followers accompanied Sati and took her in a procession to her father's sacrificial arena. There, Sati received a cold reception. Obliging Daksha, no one except her mother and sisters welcomed her. Realizing no seat of honor or sacrificial oblations for Lord Shiva, Sati became furious as she angrily looked at Daksha. Seeing her fuming with anger, Lord Shiva's followers got ready to kill Daksha, but she stopped them. Sati condemns Daksha. Sadhus like Lord Shiva find no faults, but they magnify even the smallest good they see in others. But envious people like you simply find faults, even in great souls, and dare to criticize them. I shall no longer maintain this body I have received from you, who have blasphemed Lord Shiva. Thus Sati sat down in the sacrificial arena and meditated on the fiery air within her body. While remembering the lotus feet of her exalted husband, she quit her body in a blazing fire. A tumultuous roar reverberated all over the universe. As Shiva's followers prepared to kill Daksha, powerful ribus created by Bhrigu attacked them, and they fled in all directions. Sagacious Nārada Muni disclosed Sati's insult and death to Lord Shiva. Outraged, Shiva became distraught. Plucking a hair from his head, he threw it to the ground. Thus a fearful black demon named Virabhadra appeared, and Shiva ordered him to kill Daksha along with his soldiers. Virabhadra hurriedly went to Daksha's sacrificial arena. To avenge the insulting behavior of many present there, he tore off the mustache of Bhrigu, plucked out the eyes of Bhaga, knocked out the teeth of Pusha. They were all party to Shiva's insult. Then he cut off Daksha's head and threw it in the sacrificial fire as an oblation. After setting fire to the whole arena, he departed for Kailas. Bruised and fearful, the priests and the demigods approached Brahma and informed him of what had transpired. Disapproving of their behavior towards the great Shiva, Brahma then took all of them to Kailas to pacify him. Tranquil Shiva was sitting under a banyan tree on a kushamat, speaking about the absolute truth to saintly persons like Nārada, Kuvera, and the 4 Kumaras. He was grave and seemed to have given up all anger. Seeing Brahma, Shiva immediately stood up and offered him respects by bowing down at his feet. Judicious Brahma praised the exalted position of Shiva in various ways and petitioned, "O Lord, please spare sinful Daksha. Such people are already killed by providence due to their mean-mindedness, envy, and for causing distress to others by piercing words. They need not be killed again by exalted personalities like you. Let Daksha, who has been appointed in charge of religious sacrifices, get back his life. Please revive others too. Please take your share of the sacrifice and let the sacrifice be completed." Gentle Shiva smilingly replied, "I did not mind their offenses. The punishment given to them was only meant for their correction." He agreed to revive Daksha with the head of a goat. Everyone then proceeded towards the sacrificial arena. Daksha's body was joined to the head of a goat, and his soul rehabilitated in that body. Adapting to his new body, Daksha saw Shiva and became purified of his hatred. Daksha's heart was heavy with the emotions of remorse for the ill-fated death of his daughter, Sati. Composing himself, he prayed to Lord Shiva sincerely and admitted his mistake. He could see Shiva's punishment as a favor. Which saved him from going to hell. With everything reinstated, Daksha began the sacrifice. Shortly, Lord Vishnu appeared there in an enchanting 8-handed form. All the sages and demigods offered him respects and prayers. Why is there a comma there? Sorry. Lord Vishnu then instructed Daksha, "I am the original Supreme Lord, but for the purpose of creation, maintenance, and destruction of this world, I take different names as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva respectively. Therefore, there is no difference between Brahma, Shiva, and myself in purpose. In fact, qualitatively speaking, every living being is non-different from me. One shall not differentiate or maintain a view independent of mine." Daksha then worshipped Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva, and thus his sacrifice was completed. Sati was later reborn as Parvati to Menaka and Himalaya. She again married Lord Shiva, her eternal consort. Maitreya concluded this narration saying, "Anyone who hears or narrates this pastime with devotion will be rid of all sins." Okay, we'll read about the story of Dhruva Maharaj tomorrow. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Srila Gurudev ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Mahabhagavat Srila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadashaganath Shara Goswami Prabhu ki Jai. Shri Sarup Tamadar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gopal Vrinda ki Jai. Nam Acharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kunda ki Jai. Shri Mona Devi Ganga Devi ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki Jai. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki Jai. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki Jai. Shri Chaturtha Skanda ki Jai. Is that how you say it? I think so. Anyhow, yes. Whatever. Chaturtha Skanda ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Jai. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki Jai. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandava Pranams. Oh, and Raseshwari Mataji asking, would I be able to make time for chapters 1, 2, and 3, also for the cantos 1, 2, or 3? I've actually read them before at other times, like when I finished the 3rd canto. So maybe I'll look for those videos and I can send them to you. Yeah, I'll do that. I think I read everything until 4th canto. I'll check, because this is a bit too much for us to read. That's just the first 3 cantos, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you so much for joining me every day in these readings. I wouldn't be reading Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam without you. I know I wouldn't be able to be consistent and disciplined enough to do this every morning. So it's all thanks to you that I've been able to maintain this for almost a year now. Which, all right, Dandavat Pranams, Haribol.